Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to work on this amazing project by Kimberbell called Quilting Through the Seasons. Today is the first day we're going to start stitching out these blocks. I can't wait. Today's block that we're going to work on is this one right here. It's called I'm Going to Make Everything Around Me Beautiful. So let's go ahead and head to the table, and I want to show you a few things before we can get started stitching. I also want to give a huge shout out. Again, thank you so much to My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop for sponsoring me and sending me the CD, the embellishments, and the fabric kit in order so that I can show you how to make this project. If you still need some of these supplies for this project, please visit My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop using the link down below and help me give them a big thanks for supporting me and enabling me to make this video series for you. Huge thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. Okay, so we got the book out for the Quilting Through the Seasons, and I want you to turn to page 19. This is the first block that we're going to work on today, which is called Everything Around Me in section 2. Okay, what we need to look at on here are two things. First thing that I want to take a look at is cutting a piece of batting for this block. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the end of the instructions for this block where it talks about the trimming instructions. It says visually center the design and square the block to be 6.5 by 8.5 inches. Okay, we need to cut batting for this block in order to make the block because we're doing the block by block quilting. So in order to cut a piece of batting, we need to figure out what size we needed. If you look at that 6.5 by 8.5, we want it to be larger than that. We only need a 1/2 inch larger. So I need you to cut a piece of batting that's going to be 7 inches by 9 inches. Okay, 1/2 inch larger. So if it's at 6.5 by 8.5, you're going 7 by 9. Okay, so I've gone through and made a list of all of the batting that is needed for each of the blocks of the main quilt. And I made a list. Okay, so go ahead and cut some batting, whatever batting's your preference, in these sizes. Okay, you need a 9 inch by 13 inch. You need one piece. You need a 9 inch by 9 inch. You need one piece. A 5 by 9 inch. You need one piece. 7 inches by 9 inches, you need 3 pieces. 7 inch by 7 inch, you need 2. 5 by 7 inch, you need 6 pieces. And 5 by 5 inch, you need 2 pieces. So then based on that, I've cut all of the batting pieces out first. This makes it really quick and easy when you want to get stitching, and you can just go to your batting pile and pull out what size you need for that block. I've labeled each one with a sticky note and a binder clip to keep them contained. So I can say quickly, all right, this block I need a 7 by 9. And I quickly thumb through here, and there are my 7 by 9 pieces. So I highly recommend you pre-cutting the batting out based on this list. So then you don't have to do anything when it comes to stitching. You just grab the batting you need and you work on your project. So that's the last piece that you need. And it can be any batting. This is a, imagine a warm and natural, but a little bit lighter, a little bit thinner, because we're not going to be like snuggling with this quilt. This quilt's going to be more like a display quilt. So I've used that batting for this project. Okay. So now the second thing that we need to take a look at is the block by block quilting, and we need to take a look at the design size because this is going to determine the size of the hoop that you need. This isn't going to define that. This is, because this is the largest stitch out piece. So this says it's a 6 by 8 inch design that we're pulling up, but it's really 6.5 inch by 8.5 inches because of the extra tack down and placement lines that it's going to put down on the outside of this. Your hoop needs to be able to hold a 6.5 by 8.5 inch design. So I have a Brother Dream machine, and my hoop system is either 8 by 8, which it won't fit, or I go up to an 8 by 12. Even a 6 by 10 won't fit because this is 6.5 inches wide versus a 6 inch wide 10 inch. It'll fit that way, but it won't fit that way. So your 6 by 10 hoop won't fit either. So you need to use an 8 by 12 hoop on this one. Okay, just to do the quilting design. The actual embroidery file itself is a 5 by 7. So if you're doing traditional quilting at the end, you can actually use a 5 by 7 hoop for this. But if you're using the block by block method, the quilting outside this is larger. So I need to use an 8 by 12 inch hoop on this one. Okay. So now that we've figured out what size hoop we need, I'm going to grab my hoop. Here is my 8 by 12. Put the pick aside for a second. And now we're going to cut a piece of poly no-show mesh stabilizer to go in this hoop. And I'm going to show you just a quick and easy way of cutting this. You don't have to measure. You don't have to be fancy. What you need is you need enough on each side of your hoop for the hoop to grab a hold of, to go in and come out and not be stuck inside. You want it to hang over a little bit. So I just lay the hoop down. I give it about an inch on each side. Make sure it's straight, and I've got enough on the top and the bottom. And then I come here and I cut it out to here. Mind you, the hoop is here, the hoop connection's here. So all I need to do is do a quick and easy cut off my roll of stabilizer, and then I know it'll fit. So you don't have to go measuring, just put the hoop down and cut it out based on a cushion on all sides. Then all we need to do is hoop the hoop. Okay, so again, we're going to place it, and this is the reason why you need that little excess on each side, is it so it's going to hang out. When you put the top part of the hoop on, you've got a cushion on each side, and then you lay it down. Then what you do is gently pull, and I'm not yanking, I'm not really pulling, I'm just making sure that if there's any slight wrinkles in here, I take it out, I tighten it, and then I'll do it one more time. Because you don't want to really stretch that out. You just want it to be a very gentle tug. So then you have like a drum. That's all you need. All the wrinkles are out. But this is not stretched out at all. Because if you stretch it, that's when the block will tend to pucker. So you see it's very gentle. It's like a drum, but it's very gentle, and there's no wrinkles in there. And you tighten it up. Okay? So then I'm going to grab my 7 by 9. Actually, I'm going to take this whole pile. But I will take the 7 by 9s over with this and my book. And guess what? We are ready to go to the machine and start stitching out this block. Let's go. Okay, we're at the machine. I have my hoop with my poly no-show mesh stabilizer in it. It's my 8 by 12 inch hoop. I've also checked to make sure that I have a decent amount of bobbin thread in white down below. Doesn't have to be any special color. It can just be regular old white. I'm going to put that on. And now let's go to the screen. Here we go. So we can load the design. So I have a Brother Dream machine, just in case you have something similar you can follow along with. Wake it up. All right, we're going to do embroidery. And I keep all of my files on a flash drive. So I'm going to go to my flash drive. And I have a lot here, but I'm looking for the folder that I've named Quilting Through the Seasons. And I've put my designs on my flash drive into 3 separate folders underneath that folder. So they're called subfolders. And actually there's a video which I'll link in the description below where I talk about transferring your designs to a flash drive and how to organize them in folders. So I'll put that link in the description below. So I am first going to be looking for the quilting designs. Okay. So the design that I am going to be looking for now is floral. So I also have them into the subfolders. So I want to go to the regular floral directory. And I am looking for the 6x8 design. This is all Kimberbell KDQ 291. So I'm now looking for the 6x8. Found it. It's right there. So it comes up, and notice it's 8.5 by 6.5, which is why we need the larger hoop. It won't quite fit in an 8x8 inch hoop. It's a little bit larger than that because of these outside lines. Okay, so it looks good. We don't have to do anything to it. We're going to click set. Okay, now if you have a machine where you can add a second design on top, that's what we're going to do right now. If you don't, no problem. You'll stitch this design out first, clear your machine memory, and then come in and add the embroidery design and stitch that out. But if you have the ability and have an add button on your machine, we can do that in one step. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to go back to my flash drive. I'm going to go back to Quilting Through the Seasons. And now I'm looking for what I call the main quilt. The seasons is what I call the embellishments that we're going to be doing at the second half of this series to add to each of the blocks. But right now we're focusing on this main quilt. Okay, and we're going to be looking for everything around me beautiful, which is this one you can barely see because it's stitched out in white, but it's a 5x7. Right here, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful, and that will be my life. That's what we want to do. It's actually a 6.28 inch by 4.16. Click set. Now the machine will automatically bring it in and center it on top of the quilting design, which is also centered for the hoop. This block, we don't need to move anything. It says make sure both files are centered, and the machine does it automatically, so we don't have to do anything with this block. Click embroidery, and we are ready to stitch. So let's go back to the hoop cam. There we go. All right, so we are ready to get started. What I need you to do is pull pouch number 5, or what you call everything around me, out of your basket that has the fabric for this block. Again, this is number 5, everything around me. And we're going to pull out the fabric. Get the old white thread off there. Okay. And mind you, I have pre-fused this on the back. If you followed along with my other videos, that step's already done. So we're good to go. Okay, so I've got the fabric. The fabric's black. So I want to put black thread in the top of my machine so that I'm going to do all the first stages of this in black. It's going to stitch a placement line, then it's going to stitch the batting down, and then we're going to stitch the fabric down, and I want that stitch to be black on the machine. Okay, so I'm loading this. It's a larger spool, so I have to load this behind my machine on a thread stand. So bear with me here for a second. Got to take the old thread out first. That might help. Oh, yeah, I do that every once in a while. Okay, and because we have a loop on our thread, we want to get that out. Okay, so I just use my stylus or scissors or anything and just pull it out, because if that thread is looped around this in any way in a loop, it's going to stop, break a needle, and may do damage to the foot as well. So I always try to get any loops out before the machine can start moving. Okay, the hoop is locked on. We are ready to stitch out, and the first stitch is going to be a placement line for the batting. So you ready? Let's go. Okay, so now I put the batting down and I just lay it on top of that stitch line and make sure that it's covered on all sides. Now you can either tape this down, or you don't have to. You can just do what I do and just use our stylus to make sure that it doesn't move. And let's tack down the batting. That's great. So now what I need you to do is I need you to take this hoop off the machine and go to a table, and now I'm going to show you how to trim away this excess batting from the outside edge, because we don't want this to be here, because this would be in the seam allowance of our quilt and that would cause extra bulk. So we're going to cut this away. The trick is just cut as close as you can without cutting that black thread. Okay, so let's go do that. Okay, so I'm going to be using my curved scissors that curve this way. That way that I'm not going to be accidentally cutting the stabilizer. I'm going to focus on cutting the batting. Okay, so what I want to do is just cut as close as I can to that black line of just the batting without nicking that black line. Okay, doesn't have to be beautiful, doesn't have to be perfect. You're just looking to get this excess off away from the block so that it's not going to be in the seam allowance when we go to sew it into the quilt. But I find these curved scissors work great because they're going upwards, so I'm not going to be digging down into that stabilizer. Okay, you want to keep the stabilizer intact so you don't have to do this all over again. And it's just simple like that. And we do it to all four sides. Just like that. So there you go. That's what it needs to look like. Okay. All right, let's go back to the machine. We are back at the machine. We still have black thread up on the top of our machine. And now we're going to place our fabric down. I have a little bit of fuzz on my fabric, so I'm going to use a little bit of this Kimberbell paper tape just to get that up. Okay, make it easy. Just get a little bit of fuzz, fabric fuzz as I call it, which really only shows up on the black fabric. There, that's much better. Get that off. Okay, so that's a little trick if you happen to have any fuzz. Just use some embroidery tape and get that off. All right, so now we're ready to go. So the placement of this fabric needs to be equal distance on all sides. Okay, and I use the batting as my guide because I can feel where the batting is. So I can say, I need to pull it down just a little bit. Feel the batting. Come over here. Feel the batting. Just center the fabric as best as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, there's a cushion in all this. But I've got it right there and I've got it right there. So we're ready to go. So still using black thread up on top, we're going to do this next stitch out, and then it's going to stitch out a line which is going to hold this fabric down. We're not doing the quilting yet. We're just holding down this black fabric. So I'm going to stitch this out. Let's do it. Perfect. And the main thing is you don't have to tape this stuff down. You can hold it like I do, but just make sure you always keep your fingers away from the moving needle. I have a stylus that came with my machine, and I try to use that as much as I can to keep my fingers, out of the danger zone, because you don't want a needle to go through your finger. No, you don't. Okay, so we are now ready to work on the quilting. Okay, so now you have a decision to make. What color do you want your quilting? Okay, you can quilt it in black thread. It will be very simple, elegant, and will fall and merge in with the background fabric. You don't want to go too wild or bold because you're going to be stitching a saying on this, which I'm going to be doing in probably like an ivory color. So you don't want it to compete too much with the saying. But I'm thinking maybe a dark gray that would give a little bit of a texture so that you can see it, but not blend in entirely. And the best way to do this is to take your thread and do what I call puddling. I just take a bunch of the thread off the spool and I puddle it to see how it's going to look on the fabric. Okay, so I thought one of these two would be a good choice, and I'm immediately seeing that this one is going to be a little too, I'll call it loud. It's going to compete a little bit too much with the saying that's going to go on top of it. So let's take this one out of contention. We're going to unpuddle it or rethread it back up. That's out. But this one looks good. It gives a little bit of a texture so that you're going to be able to see the quilting because it's beautiful floral quilting, but it's not going to compete with the ivory. Now I got my ivory thread out, which is going to be what the saying says, and now I'm going to puddle that. And I'm going to puddle it on top of that dark gray, and I want to see what that looks like. And I like it. I like it. I think this gives just enough that you can see the quilting, but doesn't take away from that ivory. This ivory is going to do its own speaking with the text, and this will still be in the background, but it'll be enough that you can see it and not blend in. So that's kind of how you test your thread, is you just puddle it and see, is that a combination I like? Yes or no? And switch it out to be something that you like. Because this is Quilting Through the Seasons, and that this is a quilt that you're going to display all year round, I want to stick with the neutrals. I love pink, purple, turquoise, my favorite three colors. So my initial instinct is to load this up with pinks and purples, but then it would be a spring quilt, and it wouldn't really look good for fall, or winter. So my goal is with the main quilt is to try to stick to Kimberbell's color suggestions most of the way, to keep it a farmhouse neutral color so that each season that comes on will be the pop in that season's colors. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this project, is to try to keep my base quilt so that it will look great in all seasons. Okay, so those are the colors I'm going to go with. So pick your color thread of choice for both your quilting and the seine. And then I'm going to put this thread in the top of my machine. So now that I have that dark gray color of thread up in the top of my machine and ready to go, I looked at the next stitch. And because we combined stitches from the quilting and then adding the seine on top, there's an extra kind of a tack down line on here, which we don't need. So if we look at the plus and minus key on your machine and we go back one, that's the one we just stitched. That actually secured our fabric into place. Okay, so now we go down and it wants to stitch another one. So we really don't need that one. So we're going to skip this one. If you accidentally stitch it out, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but you don't need to stitch it out. So I'm going to go forward and go directly to the quilting. Okay, so now we're ready to go. Let's go back to the hoop cam. Okay, so now we're ready to stitch this out. Are you excited? All right, let's do it. Oh, I have a little bit of a loop. Let's get that out. I'd rather be on the cautious side than break another needle. Ask me how I know. Okay, so make sure you get those loops out. So let's put the foot down. Let's stitch this out. We're going to fast forward through it here on the video, but in real life, it's a 5-minute stitch out. Okay, here we go. Yes, I really like that. That turned out great. Okay, so now I'm going to take that thread off my machine, and I'm going to load the ivory thread for the seine. Okay, you got this. All right, so put that up on top. Then we're going to take a look at the next part that we're going to stitch, which is the seine. There we go. And it's about a 19-minute stitch out in real life. So all you need to do is get this started and sit back and relax and enjoy the process, okay? So let's stitch out the seine. Here we go. I love how that turned out. Okay, look at that. You did it. We've got the black fabric with the dark gray quilting and the ivory text, and I think that turned out beautiful. You did it. Okay, so let's take the hoop off the machine. Let's go over to the table and let's finish up this block. Okay, you did it. Doesn't this look great? Okay, you're at the table. Go ahead now and loosen your hoop and take this block out of the hoop. Okay. And I'm going to put that aside for a little bit. And now we have our beautiful block. So according to the book, this block is going to measure 6.5 by 8.5 when we square it up. Remember this black line that we stitched out to tack down the black fabric? That's the line I want you to look at right now, that black stitch line. And we're going to measure 6.5 inches. And if you measure 6.5, you're going to see that it's exactly on that stitch line. Okay? If we turn it this way, and you measure from this black stitch line to this one right here, it's 8.5 inches. So that's exactly what we're going to square this block up to. So you can use a regular ruler for this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to identify that stitch line. And I'm going to move my ruler right up to it, hold it down, and I'm going to trim up this block. That first edge is easy if you have a blade that's sharp enough. Okay, let's get rid of that part. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it around this way, and I'm going to use my mat just to double check myself to make sure I'm doing this correctly. So I want to look for 8.5 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 would be the 9.5 mark on my mat. So there's 9. Go to 9.5, and there's that black stitch line right there. So I'm going to go to the 9.5 inch mark. I'm lined up there. Perfect on that stitch line. Ta-da! Okay, so we have 8.5 inches there. Now we're going to go 6.5 inches wide this way. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that stitch line. I'm right before it. Inch my ruler so it's right on top of that stitch line. Trim the block. Okay, spin it around. Now I'm going to make sure I'm 6.5 inches this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So if I go to 10 and I go to the 10.5 inch mark, I am just a smidgy past that stitch line. Perfect. Okay, and I'm going to square up the block. So that's how you can very easily square up a block with a regular ruler. If you have the orange pop rulers, that's great. I'll show those in a future video, but it's very easy to square up these blocks with a regular ruler, just using those stitch lines as a guide. Look at that. You did it. You did your first block in this project. Isn't that amazing? Great job. I also want to give another thank you to another sponsor in this video, Kimberbell, for providing me with the quilting designs to be able to make this project absolutely amazing using their block by block quilting designs. Thank you so much, Kimberbell. And if you're interested in getting these quilting designs, please use the link in the description below and it'll take you right to it, and you can choose the bundle of the quilting designs, or you can also just get individual designs if you like it all florals or all sayings, which I believe they call time. You can choose which designs you want to put in your project. So please check out the link down below for kimberbell.com. Okay, so I hope you had as much fun today making this block as I did, and I hope you stay tuned here on Jolly Molly TV for more fun, more blocks, and this amazing project by Kimberbell, Quilting Through the Seasons. Until I see you next time, take care, happy stitching, bye-bye.